I remember my husband stepping outside and looking up at the sky and being like, whoa, that looks ominous.
That's April Ehrlich. She's the Lands and Environmental Policies reporter at OPB. In 2020, she covered one of the most destructive wildfires Oregon has ever seen, the Alameda Fire in Southern Oregon.
And I went out to him and I looked up and there was this huge plume of smoke in the sky. And I was like, okay, that's a fire. I'm going to go report on it. I've been reporting on wildfires for the first time. Here is one in my backyard.
As this was unfolding, April and her husband had their emergency go bags ready. April had prepared them a week ahead. The two were now just waiting for an evacuation notice from county officials, but it never came.
People were outside in the street looking up. Cars were driving. Traffic got a little bit more erratic. So I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And then finally, I made sure that we had all our stuff, had it all packed in the car. I knew where the cat carriers were. I had dog food, cat food, food for us, etc. And we were just waiting for the time to go. And, you know, the wind is billowing outside and my neighbor is outside holding onto his hat. And he was like, yeah, you should just go.
They hit the road and immediately hit traffic.
And we can see the flames just, 100 feet away or so along the Bear Creek Greenway. And a helicopter is dipping into the creek to pull water to hit the flames. And so I started to feel a little panicky at this point.
The two eventually made it to a coworker's home where they stayed. From there, April reported on the Alameda Fire, which destroyed more than 2,600 homes. April knows better than anyone how unpredictable disasters can be. They can happen anywhere and at any time. She now prepares go bags for our newsroom and keeps a long-running Excel spreadsheet of things she can carry in her kit.
And it's super easy to get overwhelmed. I mean, I created a whole spreadsheet and went to various grocery stores to get all the things I needed and ordered things online. But all of that stuff is not stuff normal people need to do. I do those things because I am just ambitious and it makes me feel better to do all of that.
From the Gort Boyle studio, I'm Jen Chavez, and this is The Evergreen, a podcast from OPB about the place you call home. Today, we're preparing for disaster. Here in the Pacific Northwest, we are prone to wildfires, scorching heat, and the looming Cascadia subduction zone earthquake. You know, the big one, as we call it today. That's the potential 9.0 quake that's been building since 1700. So, what are some things we can have prepared in an emergency like this? So, we are at the store and we are going to get me stocked up for a go bag for a disaster because I don't really have one, which is not great. So we're going to fix that today. Thank you, April Ehrlich of OPB, for helping me.
You're welcome, Jen Chavez of OPB.
Right now, April and I are headed to the camping section. She says that's where we'll find a lot of disaster essentials.
I weirdly know where everything is in this store because I come here probably a couple times a week. Here's the camping section. These sorts of giant jumbo-tainers would be really great. I have like 2 of these filled with water and I just dump them out and refill them again every year. And it's not just for drinking water, it's also for like washing, giving water to your pets in the event that you have to shelter in place for a few days. These jumbo-tainers are very jumbo. Probably not realistic for somebody who's limited on space.
Okay.
Maybe getting a smaller container would be fine, like just 1 5-gallon container would be fine. Just kind of think about what you would need for a few days and try to stock up on that sort of water for you. It may just be 3 days, especially if you're in a city. If you're in a farther location, like a more remote location, you might want to have more water on stock.
So the first takeaway I learned from April is you should have 2 types of disaster kits. A go bag for when you need to evacuate and a shelter-in-place kit like for a snowstorm or when the power goes out.
So for your go bag, you'll kind of want just enough stuff for a day. So some food and water. You're going to want some documents, like maybe some copies of your passport, your driver's license, just in case, what if you lost some clothing? You'll want a change of clothing, at least one change of clothing for temperate weather, and then a jacket, like a packable jacket in case it's cold. And then for your shelter-in-place kit, you'll, again, want food and water. In terms of food, I tend to stick with stuff that has a fairly long shelf life, like something that lasts about a year.
It's important to remember that your go bag should be sturdy and light enough for you to carry on your back. Each family member that's able to carry something should have one. Your shelter-in-place kit should have enough food and supplies for at least 3 days. But as April mentioned, consider packing more if you're in a remote area. Okay, next takeaway, don't get overwhelmed. Another tip that you have for us is to not get overwhelmed. And I will just say, April, I am a person who gets overwhelmed very easily, so this is a good tip for me. What should people be focusing on to make this experience, which is already super scary to have to do, as manageable as possible without getting overwhelmed?
Yeah, and it's super easy to get overwhelmed. But I think this process could be very simple. It could just be getting a bag and throwing some things in it, things that you would need if you needed to leave right away. Same with your shelter-in-place kit. Just throw in some food, throw in some medical supplies and prescriptions and stuff, and just call that your shelter-in-place kit. Maybe you can add to it some more later on. Just make sure that you are revisiting it at least every year so that you don't have a bunch of expired food in there.
April says to avoid getting overwhelmed, focus on the essentials. They can fall into just 3 categories: sustenance, medicine, and information. Think of every family member and write down what everyone needs for each of those categories. Sustenance includes food and water. And by way of that, bathroom items like toilet paper, diapers, cat litter. For medicine, if you have a prescription, make sure you have enough prescription medicine to last a day in your go bag, a few days in your shelter-in-place kit. You'll want a first aid kit in both kits. Whatever sort of over-the-counter medicine would help you stay comfortable, like if you need antacid pills or if you need some sort of sleeping aid or allergy medicine, you'll want to have those. Sunscreen, bug spray. And of course, you'll want some N95 face masks in the event that you are evacuating in the middle of a wildfire. You will want to have those on hand to help prevent you from breathing in particulates. As for information, think about all the paperwork you would need if your house was destroyed. I imagine you have all of those documents at home. You can scan those or take pictures of them and have them on your phone. Again, that could include your car insurance, the deed to your house, pretty much anything you would need if you needed to restart your life and your house burned down. I've definitely run into a lot of people who are trying to get federal aid, and that's really difficult to do if you don't have any documentation of you owning your house or owning your car. They will ask for that proof of ownership. So having any documents would help you in that area. So would if you're dealing with an insurance company for your home and your home was destroyed, they're going to want to compensate you for some of the things that were in that house, but you will have to have proof that you owned those things. Finally, be sure to store some cash, a flashlight, a portable charger, and a first aid kit in your bag. Just pull down a kit and look at what's inside of it to see if it would kind of check a lot of the boxes for things you would need. I mean, obviously they have tons of different types of bandages, which is great. But they also have aspirin, ibuprofen, bug bite stuff. Oh, yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that is in my list of stuff I want to make sure I have is kind of covered in this kit. And it's super compact. So I think it even has duct tape, safety pins.
Tick remover forceps. Ooh.
You never know.
Wouldn't want to be without it if I needed it. Cool. Yeah, I definitely should pick up one of these. Coming up after a break, more tips on how to prepare for disaster. Thanks for listening to The Evergreen, our podcast from OPB about the place you call home. If you dig what you hear, subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, and we will help you feel prepared on a Monday morning. You can also follow OPB on Instagram at OPB Photo. And remember, this episode about preparing for disaster and all the great OPB reporting and storytelling, including lots of stories from April about wildfires, is made possible by the support of many thousands of OPB members. Support our journalism by becoming an OPB sustaining member today at opb.org/pod. And now, back to prepping for a possible disaster.
So these are meal kits. I don't usually use these only because every single one of them has meat in it, and I don't eat meat.
April and I are back in the camping section of the grocery store. Her third takeaway is, when packing food for your to-go bag, you'll want items that are dry, relatively lightweight, and high in nutrients.
Look, they have a vegetarian chorizo option, so
Yeah.
we could just survive off of those, and maybe these dehydrated ice cream sandwiches, which I'm sure are delicious.
If you're like April and I, who have dietary restrictions, you can come up with your own meals. You can find all types of dehydrated ingredients on backpacking websites.
Let's move down this aisle and see what else they got. They have a water purifier through a gravity system. That's nice.
Ooh.
Yeah, I have a few different types of water purifiers I take with me camping and stuff. There's something called a Life Straw, which is just a water bottle, and it has a purifying straw in it. Oh, look, they have one here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I have that in my go bag. It's just a water bottle. You can use it as a regular water bottle, but you can also just fill it with any sort of water, and it'll filter it out for you.
Well, it seems like there's a lot of overlap in a camping type of survivalist section for what we will need to get by day to day during a disaster.
And like I said, you don't need to get carried away and think about how you would survive out in the woods, because you probably will just be evacuating to a friend's house or to an evacuation center or to a hotel where they're going to have everything you need.
Right.
Just kind of imagine if you put yourself in that situation, what would you need to stay comfortable? And then get those things.
Fourth takeaway, don't forget about your pets.
Okay, there's something I wanted to show you. It's around the corner. Okay, here it is. So it's a little cat litter box kit. Has a little box and litter in it, exactly what you would need. This is only $8. You can keep it near your go bag if you have cats, as a grab and go sort of litter box situation.
Right, and I feel like you've possibly been in a situation where you needed that and didn't have it. Is that right, April?
Yes, it is. I believe I brought some cat litter, or maybe I acquired it somehow, but then I had to make a really sad litter box with cardboard and plastic bags. And then I couldn't find a pooper scooper, so I had to use a slotted spoon from the Dollar Tree. So anyway, that was my lesson, and take it from me. If you're gonna evacuate with cats, you're gonna need a way for them to relieve themselves. So this cat box is pretty nifty.
Many of us have pets, animal companions living with us. What should we be putting in our go bags for animals?
So I think the most important thing is to think about how you would be able to get your pet out of your house immediately. And that's not just for a wildfire. I mean, it could be an earthquake, it could be a flood, it could be your stove just caught fire and you need to suddenly leave your house. You need to think about how you're going to get all of your family out of there quickly. And that could be a little tricky with cats that tend to hide places, especially in situations where it can get scary or they can get spooked. You should kind of rope off or block off any areas where your cat could hide. You want to be able to grab your cat pretty quickly. For your dog, think about how you would be able to transport your dog out of your house if you needed to evacuate your house. For me, my dogs are reactive, right? They don't like other dogs, and they get a little barky if they're scared. So I keep muzzles in my go bag in the event that I need to evacuate and I need to be in a place where I'm around a bunch of other people and other dogs.
The last bit of advice goes for everyone. April says, get to know the people who live near you. When disaster strikes, they'll be the ones you can turn to for help. and you can help others who need it.
I think that's important for so many different reasons, but probably a really important one is disaster preparedness, right? Like, it's good to know who in your neighborhood you can rely on for maybe medical advice. I used to have a neighbor who was a nurse, or maybe you have somebody in town who's really handy and they can help you get a generator running if you have one, or maybe they have a generator themselves. And just developing relationships with those folks, not just because they're useful, but because it makes the community stronger, right? And you could be a resource too, right? Like if there's, like an older lady who lives alone across the street and there's a big storm coming in, you could check in on her to make sure that she has what she needs. Or if the power goes out, you can help provide a flashlight. I mean, there's only so much that emergency responders can do when disaster strikes. And I think the thing that makes us best prepared is to work together as a group, as a community, and just kind of help each other in that way.
Seems like this is good advice for all of us to make our communities stronger and resilient all the time, not just for disasters. To get a conversation started with your neighbors, maybe you can share the tips you learned in this episode with them. There's more you can personalize your bag with, like Uno cards, an extra pair of eyeglasses, or menstrual products. Reach out and let us know what's in yours. And by the way, if you're a renter like me and you live in an apartment, we are especially curious about how you make space for it all. Email us at theevergreen@opb.org. Thank you for listening to The Evergreen, a podcast from OPB. Mia Estrada produced this episode, and our technical director is Stephen Cray. Nolene Silva engineered the episode. The OPB podcast team also includes Julie Sabatier and Sage Van Wing. Mia Estrada and yours truly did the interviews you heard. The music in this episode is from Audio Network. I'm Jen Chavez. Catch you later.
Dude, they have amazing stuff here. I'm totally prepared. Check this out. How sweet is that? They're gonna be, look at this sweet dude. His awesome gear and his awesome hatchet. He's prepared. He's ready for anything. Storm coming, hatchet coming.